We want to just tell the truth today. Nothing but the truth.
I guess in order, the first thing would be the WWE AAA Spectacular Worlds Collide, which aired live on YouTube, available for streaming thereafter. Apparently broke all sorts of numbers for WWE on YouTube. How much of this show were you able to see?
Oh, I was able to see all of it. I just wasn't willing to see all of it. No, I have never been bashful about saying it's not my cup of tea, but at the same time, the relationship between American wrestling and Lucha Libre has been complicated going back to the territory days and back to the origins of the business in both countries. I think now they may try again, and there may be better success with finding a crossover audience. Previously, there has not really been a crossover audience of any sizable amount where you could say, well, the WWE is going to make their fans fans of authentic lucha. Or to be quite honest, the dedicated fans of authentic lucha, it's going to be hard to make them WWE fans. The crossover's been tried. We tried it in Ring of Honor in 2010 in that show in Charlotte. And Adam Pearce knew, oh, goddamn, whoever it was that was booking a bunch of the lucha talent at the time. And we had Blue Demon and legitimate names, because Gary Juster in Charlotte knew a guy who owned like 4 or 5 Hispanic, Spanish language radio stations, which was new to me because when I lived there in the 80s, I didn't know they had any. And I don't think they did, but now they did. And so we're like, okay, if we can get 1,000 Ring of Honor fans and 1,000 lucha fans, well, that would be just swell. And this guy owned the radio station gave us the store. And we had all of the talent come in a day early and do promos on the radio stations in Spanish. And we had dual language posters and blah, blah, blah. And the day of the event came, and instead of 1,000 Ring of Honor fans and 1,000 lucha fans, we got 994 Ring of Honor fans and 6 lucha fans. They didn't fucking come at all. But at the same time, there were some lucha shows in the area that were all lucha that had done several hundred people on an intermittent basis. But they were all lucha fans. There's been especially during the territory days, and now there were guys that crossed over, the Guerrero family, and Mascaras was huge in New York and in Texas, California. But a lot of those guys not only were somewhat versed in working with Americans, but the lucha style then was not in Mexico wasn't as over the top as it is now, or as it has become like America over the last 20 years. But you couldn't, the straight lucha, which is ingrained in Mexico, and it's what they know and what they're used to, and you don't want to change that. But especially in the territories, to American fans, there was a large element of, what the fuck is this? Whether it was from the overly acrobatic gymnastic, potentially choreographed style, to the over-the-top outfits and and the masks and the what the fuck is going on. And it was an international version of, we've talked about so many times, Philadelphia wrestling didn't work in Tennessee. Tennessee wrestling didn't work in Philadelphia. But now that, I guess, Brian, what I'm trying to say is the American fan is not saying now, first and foremost, when he sees Lucha, well, that's just some phony bullshit because it's all phony bullshit. The need to have anything look credible has never been lower. And the fans that want to go to wrestling and just to see a performance, whether it, because I mean, let's face it, and what we're going to talk about specifically here in a second with Mr. Iguana, it looked like a Saturday Night Live sketch. Whereas 50 years ago, the fans would have set seats on fire if you'd have put that in Atlanta at the City Auditorium. Now they know it's all fun and it's all bullshit and they're there to see the show. Now it remains to be seen whether it will draw any serious money or not still. But the fans, I think, of today in America will probably be some of them are still going to say, what the fuck is this? Because there's a lot of element of what the fuck is this? But they're more predisposed now in America to just watch a bullshit match because it's fun, aren't they?
Well, Lucha style has been incorporated in just about everything over the past 25 years. Again, this was in LA, and that's LA and then maybe Chicago and then New York are probably the biggest markets you could maybe, I don't know. Has there been a big successful Lucha show in South Florida? I'm not sure, but
well, San Antonio, you could do something. See, South Florida is, I've been told by people who would know more about it than me, i.e. people of Hispanic descent, that in South Florida, they don't like the Mexican folks as much as they like the Cuban folks and the Puerto Rican folks. So it's a different.
Well, again, we're talking about wrestling, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not like it's something that they grew up with and crossed the border into Laredo, Texas. We're over here in Miami and we don't do a lot of lucha over here.
But the style has been everywhere. Unfortunately, when you look at the lucha influence over American wrestling, in a lot of cases, it feels like it's more of Antonio Peña's vision of lucha than, CMLL or EMLL, whatever they want to call themselves nowadays. That was one of the big takeaways from watching this event. You're at a point now where you watch these guys like a Psycho Clown and whoever his clown partner was, because I never got his name, really. It was just, there was a second clown character. It doesn't seem like it wouldn't fit into American wrestling now. And it wouldn't.
Sadly, yeah.
It would not fit in, or it would fit in perfectly.
Yeah, not a double negative. Yes.
And not just AEW. I think that's the other thing. Mr. Iguana, and I don't want to, we'll get into it in a moment, but Mr. Iguana was the equivalent of Orange Cassidy showing up on WWE TV. And, we would kill, and we did AEW for Orange Cassidy. This was WWE having Orange Cassidy. And WWE is not beyond that anymore. WWE is about exploiting anything that will make them money and work, even if it's only for a second.
And even if they have to sell stuffed iguanas, but that's the point in general that I'm making about the Lucha American crossover has been tried by numerous companies, and people are going to say, "Oh, well, what about When Worlds Collide?" AAA in 19 that was a AAA show in Los Angeles. It wasn't like, and there were Americans on it because the Americans were working in Mexico for AAA at that time.
Yeah, well, Ron Skoler was really the real mastermind of the reason why a lot of people were on that show that wouldn't typically appear on a show. Like Tito Santana was on that show. There were some interesting picks. Too Cold Scorpio was on that show. But that was a AAA IWC Lucha show presented for a Lucha audience, aired to anyone who wanted to buy it. It ended up being one of the best pay-per-views of all time, one of the greatest jobs of commentary ever. Mike Tenay's debut, and Chris Cruz's best night as a commentator ever. It was an extraordinary night. And, that was kind of the beginning. You could say, sure, some of these guys were doing things in the States, and sure, some of them went to ECW after that. But that was the beginning of the period of time of, you look at almost everyone on that show, they ended up on Nitro. At some point, Art Barr died. If Art Barr hadn't died, he would have been on Nitro or Raw.
Well, let's be fair. Everybody ended up on one or the other at some point in time when they had 300 and something guys under contract between the two companies. But the point is, it wasn't it was a crossover in terms of WCW presented that pay-per-view. Ron Skoler was the mastermind behind the live event promotion, but it was a lucha show promoted for a lucha audience. And they had some successes doing that in the major cities where there was an audience for lucha.
LA?
But
again, LA was the market. I mean, they did okay in Chicago. They did okay in New York, I guess. But LA
well, and right now, MLW is doing great in Chicago because they're focusing on the luchadors and that lucha audience. But the point I'm making is it's rare, if not unheard of, for a legitimate co-promotion of an American company and a lucha company, or back in the territory days, for any straight lucha to be on a territory show and for it to get over. It's been two different audiences. This may be, if it's not, it's the best chance ever. If it's not the chance it's going to do it, it's the best chance ever, because the need for a match to not look like a goddamn Saturday Night Live sketch is at its lowest ever in the United States of America.
Yes.
These people just want to see hokey fucking silly shit.
They want to be there for a live audience reaction to whatever they're going to see. You know, you bring up MLW, and it's interesting because I have not watched those shows. I've heard about them. I've heard from people who worked on those shows. And I think it's the opposite of what you had with Ring of Honor. I mean, tell me what you've heard. In Chicago, they're getting the lucha fans, not the MLW fans. They're getting the CMLL fans.
Yeah, no, there was like, I can't remember how many the building holds, but if there was 1,500 people there, because it was full, it was like 200 white people there. And the luchador, the Lucha Brothers, old Penthouse and Felix.
That's right.
They were fucking diving everywhere and falling on people's heads back then. But they were the stars, and then Jacob Fatu, I mean, he appeals to Martians, to anybody. And MJF was on the show, and he can get over even, in a fucking iceberg too. But they were coming. That's who was buying the tickets, who was selling the tickets, was the luchadors. Point being, we shall see. The problem becomes that there is still a large group of American fans that are going to look at a lucha match, especially now, because I'm not being xenophobic when I say this, because our country suffers the same thing. Wrestling matches as a whole look a lot phonier, sillier, and faker than they do 30 years ago, and so do the matches in Mexico. But since there's still the cultural difference, you're going to get a lot of American fans that look and go, what the fuck? If they are not wanting just a silly show for the kids and to laugh at things, the ironic audience, like the AEW folks call it, then they're still going to look at a match like Mr. Iguana and Friends as, oh, fucking come on. And
it's never been faker, yet the injuries have never been worse.
Well, yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, all the matches are fake, but everybody's having goddamn spinal fusions. But, oh, Christ, you said it earlier. It's like a lucha version of Orange Cassidy popped up in the WWE. Vince McMahon, that's the one good thing that I could say about Vince McMahon in the course of this podcast is he would have had a goddamn conniption fit and probably hit the ring and fucking thrown that guy out, because it wasn't even, I mean, the guy behind the gobbledygooker, but he didn't want you to make the business look like a complete Benny Hill fucking sketch.